Hey, Kansas City business owners making $100,000 or more per year. This message is for you. You work hard, but let's be real. Your finances, they might be a challenge. You're spending hours drowning in receipts, guessing what to enter in QuickBooks, and stressing out over taxes. And here's the scary part. If your numbers are wrong, you could end up paying way more in taxes this year, or even worse, getting hit with fines from the IRS. But you don't have to keep doing this alone. Silverstone Bookkeeping has over 16 years of experience and has helped over 50 businesses clean up their books and avoid costly mistakes. They know how to fix the mess fast so you can focus on growing your business. Right now, Silverstone Bookkeeping is offering a free 15-minute review of your finances in QuickBooks, where they'll review your setup, identify issues, and help you keep more of your hard-earned money. That's a $150 value, free for the first 5 listeners of Kansas City Business Cast. You heard me right. Silverstone Bookkeeping, with their 16 years of bookkeeping experience, is providing a special offer to check your QuickBooks setup and ensure everything is in order for 2025. If your business is making $100,000 or more per year, do not wait. Call Silverstone Bookkeeping at area code 913-732-4151 or visit silverstonebookkeeping.com to book your free audit today. You grow your business, let Silverstone Bookkeeping handle the tedious financial tasks. Hey, welcome to Kansas City Business Cast. We are about starting off season 4 this winter 2025, and you've already heard a message from our sponsors before this piece started. Again, if you are interested in sponsoring the show, we are definitely looking for more sponsors for season 5 and the rest of this year. Contact me on social media to learn more about that. I also say it all the time, but I'm going to say it because this could be your first time coming on. You know, we definitely get help from the ratings and subscriptions and written reviews too on Apple. I know a large percentage of you are Apple listeners, about actually 58%, more than half listen to us on Apple. So if you listen on Apple and if you've got an iPhone, that means that you have an Apple ID. You can definitely leave us a review if you enjoy what we're doing. And if you don't, shoot me a message. Let me know how we can improve, please. Without further ado, I am so excited to have my next guest on this show. I told her yesterday that I've been geeking about this ever since we set this up. But I've got Tiana Thompson. Welcome to the virtual building. Tiana from Train with T, LLC, and Combat Cardio KC. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Michael, for having me. I'm excited to be here, man.
It is such an honor. It is such an honor. I've been watching what you and Mitch have been doing with Combat Cardio. I think I saw when Gabriel from To Bring About announced, the opening, and then you all did the poll on what color should the gloves be. And what, you just really got a lot of good interest before you launched, which was in December, correct?
November 2nd was our official opening date. Yep.
Got it. November. Okay. Time's rough for me.
It all blurs together.
I'm not going to apologize for that.
Good.
We are tallying our silly sorries today on this show. Can you tell us what a silly sorry is?
Yeah. Okay. Exactly. So a silly sorry is when we just instinctively say sorry for the silliest of reasons, right? And I value that so much because apologies mean a lot. They should mean a lot. Like, you shouldn't apologize if you don't mean it. And we talked a little bit about this, but like, as a people pleaser, it's easy for us to sorry. Like, you don't have to apologize for existing. It's okay. It's okay. You're a human.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So at the end, we'll find a way, and I hope I can keep track. But like I told you before we started recording, I feel like I'm going to have the biggest tally of silly sorries today. We'll see. I am confident that I can do it.
I've got faith in you, Michael.
I appreciate that. So, we kind of have a format to this show, yet we don't, right?
Okay.
It's a really organic conversation.
And I think, though, that it is definitely important as, relatively recently in, the end of 2020, you've been investing more in your sort of personal PR department,
Yeah.
right? Public relations. Like you've been building your personal brand. You have a very non-traditional approach to the way that you train your clients with Train with TLLC. And then also combat cardio in itself. I mean, the name is just like, it's like a bright sign in Las Vegas to me. I saw it and I said, what is this?
Heck yeah.
Right? Because there is nothing more physical than combat with other human beings. And, as somebody who, has done jujitsu and I'm on my road back and all of these other things, it's like, I know full well that nothing will test your mettle like, going toe to toe to somebody, literally toe to toe in the boxing sense. And so, there's a lot that we can cover. It's going to be a really fun conversation, but, maybe you could start from the beginning and tell us a little bit about your origin, where some of these things started bubbling up, or just what moments in your life made you who you are today. Maybe we could go there too. However you want to start it off, we can go there.
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about the origins, right? So with combat cardio, as many people know, my brother and I own and operate it together. And I think a big thing there is growing up, there's five of us immediately. Growing up, like I'm the youngest. So there was always this little bit of kind of like, whenever you have the slow kid at the back of the line, that's kind of like trotting along, trying to keep up. Like that was me for so long in my life with my siblings. And with me and Mitchell, there's a 4-year age gap. And so, that's a good enough gap where him all the way up to Michael, our other siblings, are so just close bunched together that they're all, partying along together, having a great time. And I'm still trotting behind, trying to keep up. And I think for that, it instilled a little bit of not awareness, but observing. Like I was always a person that observed. And I tied this into kind of like when it comes to the training piece and my focus with my clients one-on-one or with my people in combat cardio, because there's a heaviness of awareness that I truly believe that you can take out of physical activity, combat training specifically, into the real world that allows you to just be a lot more in tuned, not only with yourself, but your surroundings. And that's super, super, super huge, because you just, stay ready, don't got to get ready. And as simple as like that is,
that's what I'm talking about.
Like
the streets.
You gotta be ready. Listen, it is 2025. People are wild out here. And if you're not, I'm not saying you have to go to the extremes, but even just the basic fundamentals of awareness and being able to understand your surroundings, it starts with spatial awareness and it starts with bodily awareness. And that is one of when I first started doing boxing with Michael and with Mitchell, when they first started doing it, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, for me, it was awkward. It was weird. Like I was playing softball. I was not doing hand-to-hand combat. I was actually trying to avoid it because my siblings would kind of beat up on me. Not a whole lot, but I got enough of it growing up where I was like, listen, y'all, I do not want to be physical. Like, what are you doing? And breaking the insecurity of the newness and finding confidence in oh, I can be powerful when I strike. Oh, I can actually carry this over to if I have to protect myself. Or a lot of it for me is protecting my friends and my family. I don't want to be, out in a public setting and something happens. I can't be the person that helps, the ones that I love the most. Or just even a stranger. Somebody has to be ready to take care of somebody. And you can't always rely on first responders because they're not always going to be around.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think average response time is 10 minutes for, an emergency. And it really depends, too. It depends on what time it's happening, how staffed or short-staffed the team is.
Right.
And, you've probably heard this before, but, in defense training, it is you are your own first responder.
Right.
Right? You have to be your own first responder.
Absolutely.
For sure. So, yeah, you talked about, growing up, being last in line, kind of, being resistant to the physical training. What was the spot where it kind of clicked? You talked about this, right? Ooh, I can be powerful when I strike. And also I want to be aware and I want to be, I'm paraphrasing here. I want to be the lioness when I'm out in public.
Yeah. No, take up space,
So,
right? And I think a lot of women specifically, this is something that I've heard more and more the last couple of years, especially coming from where I was at in a place of leadership in my last career, being one of the only women in leadership in my last career. Taking up space is a positive thing. It's a very positive thing. How it started was when I stopped playing college softball. It was like, all right, 2019, I'm playing college softball full time, but I'm also working full time, and I'm taking 16 credit hours. Like, it was just a lot. I was not the scholarship person full time. You're starting, you're the all-star. I was the walk-on. I'm the last in line. Like, I'm happy to be here. I'm rooting for everybody. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to show up, and I'm just grateful for this opportunity. And then it got to a point where I was like, I'm burning my wick at both ends. Is this type of cycle where I'm overworking, underperforming, and still showing up happy to be here worth it? Just to maybe play my senior year? Because, like, my background in softball I was not the traveler. I was not the person that started when she was 8 years old. It literally started my freshman year of high school and, like, just went all in on it. Sorry about that. Dang it, you got man, I got you first.
don't claim it though next time. See if you get got by the end of this thing. Yeah, don't claim it.
Fair enough.
Go ahead. I appreciate the one
integrity. I gotta be honest. But yeah, so to kind of wrap up, so I stopped playing softball. It was in one of, like, the lowest of lows that I had been in my life, because my identity came from, and this is the people-pleasing merge, my identity came from, I'm the only one of the siblings that went and played college sports, and we're a family of athletes. So there's, like, a little bit of younger child pride in that, of like, I did this, you guys did it. Even if I was a walk-on, I still did it, you guys did it. There's, like, that ego there. But then there's also I'm an athlete. That's who I am. I'm a college student. That's who I am. Like, there was no sense of self-worth and self-identity of, no, I'm Tiana and I do these things, right? And so, a season of one of my lowest depressions, I was not physically active. I was just kind of, like, doing things I knew I shouldn't have been doing to an extreme, because I was trying to escape reality. And, one of the biggest blessings of 2020 was I got back into fitness. I was getting back on track. Then I had an appendectomy, which was you can't control when your appendix is about to burst. You can't control it.
Oh, yeah. I was going to clarify. Yeah, that's appendix.
Yep.
Okay.
Mine didn't burst, luckily, thank God. But,
Thank God.
appendicitis is appendicitis. You got to get it out regardless. And so
right.
That in itself, I think, was really good for me being able to reset, to truly rest, and kind of look at my life in a third perspective of, what are you doing? Like, you're blaming everybody else for these circumstances. You're not taking responsibility for your own actions of being a degenerate, of not being active, of eating like a dickhead, and all these things. And I had to really kind of hone in on that. That's really what clicked. And then getting active again, I started doing boxing with Mitchell and with Michael, because at the time, that's when I started personal training. February of 2021 is when I first started training personal training. There we go. Michael and I, we were using our back room at our house. We were training people there, and me being a person that takes pride in, leading by example. Like, I don't, if you're going to talk, walk the walk. It's that simple, and I'm very transparent that I'm not perfect. I am not the perfect person by any means. No one is. But, I've got Mitchell doing boxing stuff. I'm always down to try new things. My clients are curious. They see the mitts, in my back room. So I'm like, all right, I'll try it. And there's also this sibling dynamic of, like, I don't want to, just like, you don't want to hear something from your partner. Sometimes you don't want to hear something from your siblings, especially your older brother, your older sister, whatever. Like, all right, man, whatever. But we did it, and it helped really teach me the separation of emotion and execution. And I'm telling you,
the separation of emotion and execution.
Yes. And
okay,
being able to be present in that session and not look at this as my older brother picking on me, the childhood trauma, my older brother,
Mm.
trying to tell me what's right, what's wrong, and really work through those feelings. Because there was a point where me and Mitchell had a very rough dynamic. And like, we didn't talk for like a year. And I'm hard headed. So I was like, man, whatever. Like, I'll see you when I see you. But, being able to show up there, remove the emotional piece, and then execute the workout, and then find empowerment in not necessarily what he is saying, but how he's guiding me, and me understanding, like, if I mess up, don't manifest more mess ups by dwelling on that. And like, oh, shoot. Dang. Dang. Right? Like,
Oh, sorry. Oh, man. No, sorry. Sorry for being sorry.
yes.
Man, I'm sorry. Jeez.
And then it's a big ball. And you wake up, you're like,
It's a
what?
cycle for sure.
Yes.
It's like the snake, the infinity symbol of the snake just eating its tail. It's just continuously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, to your question, that's really what rooted this journey, diving into wellness, diving into fitness. My background is in psychology, so I've always had an interest and high priority in mental health. And so, and I always tell my clients, like, it does not matter what you're trying to achieve physically. It starts with the mental. Because if you have stuff going on up here and you might look the best, you might have the six pack, you might be the strongest, you're still going to go home. It's not a fact, but my hunch is you're still going to go home and you're still going to have a void that you're trying to fill, and you're repeating that cycle.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about voids, right?
Yep.
So you talked about identity. That is something that is huge for me, because I'll tell you what, I've always found something to put my identity into, right? And so like when I was in high school, it was like, I'm a football player and I'm a wrestler. And then when I left high school and I was in the band and we were, signed and touring, it was, I'm a metal musician, I'm a touring musician, all this. When I had to walk away from that, it was like my identity is like, it was gone,
Right.
you know what I mean? And so I was gone. And then ultimately that led me to, my identity in Jesus, and like, everything. If my vertical relationship is good, like everything horizontal works out too. And
absolutely,
in the same way, on that subject too, if we're talking about identity, me personally, my belief, right, is, the Bible says the body is a temple, right? And so for me in my journey, I was like, okay, what's in my temple? Every morning McDonald's is in my temple. If it's true that roof tar ingredients are in the Egg McMuffin, then I've got stuff that they lacquer the tops of houses with in my body. No wonder I'm fat, sick, and nearly dead.
Right.
And, and then it goes further. It's what's in my mind. What types of thoughts am I feeding my mind?
Yep.
And, how are my relationships? And, that identity piece is so huge. You talked about, the identity, and then also, if you're, I don't know if you define yourself like a recovering people pleaser or, doing better than you used to, but like, where does that all kind of, where's the nexus of that, like the identity, and then, wanting to serve others without being like a people pleaser? I know I don't really have a targeted, pinpointed question there.
I'm with
but
you though.
On the subject of hit me.
Yeah.
So on the subject of identity and people pleasing, what do you have to say about that?
Thinking about it just right now, like, there's a light bulb went off in my brain. People pleasing isn't inherently bad, right? It's not inherently bad in the sense that, it's good to serve others, right? We are put on this earth, and I truly believe this, like, as a vessel of God's light, and like really operating in that lane, you're walking a life where you do serve others, right? We love our brothers, we love our neighbor, and there's a piece of like, it's again, the separation and execution, the separation of emotion and execution of the people pleasing. It is, are you finding your self-worth in how you please people or how pleased they are? Or is it knowing that what you're doing is right and you find wholeness in it, so then you can walk away regardless of how they feel? So to your question, I'm still a people pleaser. It's like, addicts will say, I am an addict. And, I am an alcoholic. And you may have been sober for 20 years, 50 years, 10 days, right? But at the end of the day, you're still an addict. At the end of the day, I am still a people pleaser. However, I know that my self-worth, I know that the love that I receive does not come from those people. It does come from God and God only. And that's how I'm able to now operate within these means and separate good and evil, right? That's how I know, like, I have a better intuition and better instinct on how to serve certain people and when to serve. And there's no like it's not conditional serving, but it's sometimes you have to meet people where they're at, and you can't lead a horse to water and stick their neck in and make them drink it, right? You have to just show them the water, and then they get to choose what they do with it. You get to serve a person, you get to help them. If your love language is gift giving or their love language is receiving gifts, you give them the gift. They get to choose how they decide, and it's not a reflection of you. And it's taken me a long time, and I still struggle with understanding, like, dang, does that person like not like me? What's going on? But that's just the human nature. That's going to be forever. That's going to be a thing that we tussle with as humans until, we're gone.
Absolutely. Well, I love the honesty that you, the way that you speak about it, because that is the other thing too that is very healing in that journey, is when you can actually say it out loud and say, hey, don't get it twisted. I am not like one of these people that doesn't struggle with, my identity being in the worth that others assign to me. That there's this saying that hit me. It was from a book, and sometimes I don't quote authors on purpose because I'll say the quote and then people will wonder more about the person who wrote it. And so I'm going to purposefully leave the person's name out. But I read it, and it said, if you live for people's approval, you'll die by their rejection. It is still, I feel like it was engraved on my heart, and it was I actually, at some point, I had a sticky note on my mirror for maybe a year and a half with that on it, because I was doing the thing that dudes with new families do. It was, if I don't show up, 60, 70 hours a week, if I'm not there at the beck and call for my director, if I'm not answering emails at 9 o'clock, then I'm not going to be worthy. I'm not going to get the promotion. And then my family's going to starve and we're going to lose the house. And have you ever done that? You engineer your doom, like in your mind, you say all this, we talk about this sorry cycle thing. It's like, you are literally reverse engineering your demise and you don't even realize it. Yeah. And it's this whole worry cycle. And so, you look like you're patiently waiting for a track to explode on. What do you got there?
That part, right? You're creating this story. If I tie that into the people pleasing, I see this Instagram post at least once a month. And it's funny because it's so real. There's this exaggeration today of the word empath and the ability to like feel emotions and like feel what other people are feeling. And like,
everybody's walking around like Professor X and Jean Grey, right?
Yes, guilty. I mean, I've been guilty of it. Circling back to circling back to, no, you're okay. Dang it, where was that? No.
The empath.
Yes.
The empath. You said there's a meme about
there
the
is
empath.
A meme, and it is essentially, circling back to like being the kid and being the observer, right? And like seeing things. So as an empath, there's this post that says, I'm an empath. I feel what people are feeling, and then I explain to them what they're feeling based on my own projection of what I'm feeling. And you create this story, right? And so there's like, which is funny because there's also some like under layers of narcissism in that, of like, you're feeling this way because I said you're feeling that way, because actually how you're acting is how I would feel in that type of behavior. And like, that's something that I have had to overcome and battle with, being like, it's just a trauma response and a trigger response from like a childhood, and always caring about what other people think and how they feel, and like the actions that you do to determine their actions. And that created this cycle in my brain for a long time, until about 4 years ago, where I started to unlearn it. And I started to understand, like, recognizing somebody else's emotions and recognizing like how you may feel in that position is okay. But to then like project that onto them, and like they're going through this time and now you're telling them how they're feeling in this time, is so disrespectful to their experience. Sorry, my cats are going crazy right now. I think I have mad zoomies, but it's so disrespectful to their experience, right? I had to tell myself for a long time, because I feel very differently sometimes from how my sister feels. And so there's this thing where like 3 feet to me might be 30 feet to them. And I might be drowning in 3 feet and they might drown in 30. but understanding that they're still drowning is the point. Like, it doesn't matter if it's 30 feet or 3. It doesn't matter if I stub my toe or break my leg. There's still an experience there that I can't be the D-bag, like, dismissing that experience. And I think that has allowed me to really, really not only mend some relationships and friendships that I've had in my life, but also like really grow and find more people who walk in that same light as me and know like I'm surrounding myself with like-minded people, have a tribe in which I know that I can rely on. And there's this absence of that empath overuse feeling, and there's like actual recognition and acknowledgement. I think there's two different things.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. Like, if I didn't know your background, I would have assumed that you were like a doctor in, counseling psychology just now, with the depth of understanding that you have. It really, and this is the thing too, like, as I hear you speak, it's like, I know you've walked through this stuff. People don't speak in the confidence and the authority at which you speak about these things without doing deep personal work and actually working through it with other people.
Yeah.
And I think I've never heard the trauma and pain sort of comparison so well said as what you did. Okay, so I've heard, you got to walk in another person's shoes. You haven't walked in their shoes. I've heard people putting a kind of a witty spin on that one lately. Another one I've heard is, the hardest thing you've ever been through is the hardest thing you've ever been through. And so what some people have been through, man, that's the hardest thing they've ever been through. You've got to, whether you think it's a first world problem or not, you have to respect that. Because you weren't there. Your brain didn't mold. There weren't all these decisions and agreements and things that happened to you that made that person what they are. That didn't happen to you. But when you said that whole thing, like, I might drown in 3 feet, they might drown in 30 feet, vice versa, whatever. Man, that's, this conversation, I'm going to be thinking about this, for a while. I don't know, where it's coming from, but I feel like I need to hear everything that you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down is what I'm saying here. Okay, so let's talk about this, right?
Okay.
So you've done a lot of deep personal work. And with Train with T, we've talked about this. You don't just focus on the diet and the fitness.
Nope.
We talk about habits, we talk about thought patterns. So how are you helping your clients get through this? You kind of gave us a window into it by saying, hey, I don't narcissistically put myself, or I do my best to not put myself in there and interpret things the way I would interpret it. But how are you helping them get breakthroughs? And maybe you could give us an example, confidentially, of course, of breakthroughs that you've seen with some of your clients.
Absolutely. If specifically when we're talking about training with T, I am majority one-on-one in-person training. And I really find huge value in face-to-face interaction, or at least person-to-person interaction, right? Like if we were in the same room right now, like, you would be able to feel the vibes and I'd be able to feel the energy coming off each other, right? And that is huge.
For sure.
Like, I say this whether you are a believer or not, God is in everything. God is love. God is energy. It is the way people communicate. You will find him in everything. And when it comes to these conversations or these processes in which I'm working with my clients, it's the same type of conversation of what you're doing when we are training will translate to when you leave these 4 walls. So you having confidence here, but you may not be having confidence in other areas in your life, is a reflection of there is some type of conditional thought pattern that you have. And being able to break that conditional thought pattern simply by, no matter what, whenever we meet, I'm going to ask you about your day. I'm going to ask you about how work is going. I'm going to ask you about these things. What are your goals for the month? For example, one of my guys, he himself is trying to figure out like what he wants to do. He's a young dude. He's got literally like, and people will say, all the time in the world to figure it out. And very similar to kind of like the conversations I was having with myself when I stopped playing softball. What am I meant to do on this earth? What's my purpose? Who am I? These are some of the conversations that we're having, and start small. Yes, we're training, but get a journal and let's start writing some of these thoughts out. because that pen to paper is one of the best tools for you to even reflect and go back on those thought patterns. Even like the way you write, like I will go back to when I was in my most lowest depression and I will just look back at the handwriting and I can see where my thoughts start to spiral. I can see where I come back. I can see where I'm like choppy, where I don't journal for months. And it's just a reflection of the discipline, the habits, and the consistency that carry over. And I will always give the example of myself for the piece of it's the best source that I have to provide them a platform of something to look at. Or I'll give Mitchell as an example, overcoming his Crohn's last year and navigating that. And there are so many up close and personal examples that I try my best to give because I don't want to be this person that is just giving you stories from above that don't relate. Like it needs to be personable. And that's why I value so much that one-on-one aspect more than anything. And even what we do at Combat Cardio, like, yeah, your workout is 33 minutes in total technically, but 9 times out of 10, you're either showing up and we're talking for 5 to 10 minutes before, and then we're talking 5 to 10 minutes after. It might get into the conversation of nutrition. It might get into maybe workouts they're doing outside of your sessions there, but it always is gonna fall back to, all right, well, so what are your habits? Why'd you eat that thing that we know we shouldn't be eating? Well, because I was sad. Well, why were you sad? Well, because I am going through this hardship with my partner and like we're just trying to figure that out. Totally understandable. That is not an easy thing to do. Like navigating your self goals while also being in a committed relationship, or you have kids to take care of, or there's at least some other extra responsibility outside your own. There's a bit of guilt sometimes where it's like, I don't want to take care of myself because I have all these other things to take care of. Well, just like going back to before, your body is a temple. Like loving yourself first is only going to allow you to love others to the best capacity that you can. And then also deliver in a way that like isn't going to be detrimental. So not to monologue that, but that really does come down to just the conversation and acknowledgement. And now I'm always going to go back to that same homework assignment that I may have given, which was, what'd you journal about? What are 3 things you're grateful for? Let's start rewiring our perspective and not always go down the rabbit hole of like, whoa, it's me, because it's so easy. And sometimes even today, I have those instances where like I feel insecurity about certain things. But at the end of the day, it's like, no, turn around, take a deep breath. Let's implement some breathing exercises as needed and calm down. And then come back to it when I'm not in an emotionally heightened state. Let's come back to that thought process when I'm no longer heightened and I can actually think clearly.
Absolutely. My gosh. Just an observation, what I've noticed, the way that you speak about your training and your interactions with your clients, you absolutely are unique in the way that you're approaching this with them, because, I have known personal trainers, I've known, dietitians, and I do believe too that everyone should have a bullpen of healthcare providers because, I think hopefully, if people haven't learned it by now, that the basic MD is not going to be able to give you an answer for all your problems. Right. In fact, I'm not going to say some ridiculous number like 9 times out of 10, but, there's a high likelihood that you're going to have to get a second, third, maybe fourth opinion, or you're going to have to come at health challenges, mental health, behavioral health, relational health with another angle. And so it's really good to have a bullpen of people that are maybe specialists in different areas. Like, you might have a hormone problem, or, you might have gut issues, or, like with me, it's like, because they gave antibiotics to kids in the 90s, like they were, like it was Pez dispensers and Skittles. Like I have no gut bacteria. Right. And so I've had to do, a lot of that, but wow. I love how you are actually incorporating a lot of this psychological, mental health, well-being. And it sounds like too, when you're meeting with them, there's always next time to discuss the next thing, whatever comes up at that point. But, you're meeting people with where they're at. Just so curious about how you decided, we're going to talk about journaling, and we're going to talk about what's going on in their personal life. And when they show up, we're not just going to focus on the physical health, because I know too, I've met personal trainers, no one in my tribe right now, but back in the day, where That's all they would focus on.
Mhm.
And if anything came up, like, that's not my department. Like, nope, you got to go talk to your counselor about that, or talk to your divorce lawyer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so, like, there's boundaries that people put on their relationship professionally.
Right.
That's the cat. Don't kind of apologize again. I did tick.
It was a mental.
Attack that. It wasn't quite silly though. Anyway, because it was the cat. He's making noise. He's like, yay. But just I love how you broadened that, and I would imagine that you attract a different type of clientele because of
Right.
that. The question is, where did you decide, like, we're going to be holistic? And I'm going to talk about these things with my
Yeah.
clients.
Okay. So heavy on that. The last 3 years when I was working at S2 supplement superstores, like, man, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it, because that job, seriously, whoever ever works there, you get an understanding of what I'm talking about, because you have so many different types of people that are walking into your store for so many different reasons. And there's a huge responsibility in being equipped with the knowledge, the emotional awareness, the sensory acuity of how to work with people, right? It's not about the product. It's not about how amazing your meal plan can look. It's simply about, how is this person leaving my store knowing that they're in a better position to achieve their goals, regardless if it's a health thing or whatever they're trying to achieve, knowing that they leave in a better mindset than when they came in, right? And I started working there when I was 21. Sometimes I had employees that were 18, 19, right? And like, these are concepts that an 18-year-old who's still living at home, like, can't barely even chew over, right? And so there's not only this dynamic of trying to guide an employee to understand, like, the weight in which, like, our job really holds, but also, like, the responsibility that they have for their own personal development, and that work that we're talking about, doing that work to show up as a better version of themselves, but also a better tool that person can now use and come to. So, you have somebody come in and they're like, hey, I'm looking for something to give me better energy. You're like, all right, cool. Like, the easiest thing would be like, I'm just going to show you these supplements that are, designed to give you better energy. But I'm not going to put a Band-Aid over a deep cut. Like, I'm not going to just give you a supplement so you can now buy it and then leave. And then now you don't have better energy because you have poor sleep habits, because you eat one meal a day, because the meal that you do eat is Starbucks and a burrito. Like, there's so many layers to it. And it's in my opinion, there's a level of, like, parenthood of guiding somebody in that, of, like, you can't make all the decisions for them, but you can best equip them with the knowledge and understanding of what's going to help guide them in the right way. Now, that's kind of a crazy comparison, but I say that because my number one goal in life, like, I want to be a mother, like, I want a family, I want children. And the way I'm able to kind of, like, quote unquote practice that is the way in which I act and look at things now. Like, if I was still a hot-headed person the way I was in my teens, like, they're going to have an angry, hot-headed mom. And, like, no child wants that, because then you're just repeating cycles, right? So
Absolutely.
Going back to the store and like the knowledge and experience that I gained, it's like so eye-opening to how it translates more than just being a person in a polo at a store. Like, you have better awareness on how to operate with people, because, maybe somebody's going through a hard time and they come in and they one-word you. It's like, it's not a reflection of me. That person is a normal person. I'm a normal person at a store. Like, I don't have to dive right into the core of that onion that day, but it's small deposits over time. And it's the same conversations I have with my clients. Like, I don't get right to so tell me about your trauma the first time I meet you. Like, who am I?
Yeah.
That's not what we're doing the first time we meet.
Have you exploded at anybody lately?
Yeah. Like, what? What are your dreams about? Like, no. It's baby steps. It's peeling back the layers. There is a little bit of, like, not prying, but prodding, in which that I have to do on my end. And then based on their willingness to share, allows me to now navigate how to best help them. And it's about, again, it's not like the carrot and the stick analogy. where like I'm dangling something in front of them to now get some, like they're getting something for it. Like we're not going to talk about your feelings so that way you get a six pack, but you have to understand the connection of your emotional habits and now the eating and now the translation of the physical. I had to tell myself this too, being a person who has emotional eating habits and like recognizing and being transparent with my clients, like, yeah, that's going to happen, but you can't let it ball up and then consume you to now you're, worse than where you started.
Absolutely. Gosh, I want everybody in the world to sign up to find training. You said the majority of your clients are in person. Do you do like online coaching as well?
Yep.
Like where you're from a distance?
Yep.
So anybody all over the world can contact you.
Yes.
And talk about their goals. Do you do what sort of technology do you use to do that from a distance? Because I mean, yeah, man, as you're talking, it's like that's hard to offer what you do face to face, like the vibe and
Right.
You just be in there with them, getting a sweat in together.
Yeah.
But how do you do that online?
So my online programming is essentially, whether it's nutrition or it's personal training, is we will have the blue dot theory, right? Are you familiar with the blue dot theory?
No, not hit me. I'm getting so many like brain cracking open. You're cracking so much gray matter today. It's unbelievable.
Well, okay, you know what? I'm
Yeah.
glad. It's
I'm
a good
taking
Saturday.
notes. I'm glad that we're videotaping this because I'm going to use this later on to remind myself. I'm
That's
telling
awesome.
you, Tiana, everyone else is going to do it too. Go ahead. So what's the blue dot theory?
So like the blue dot
Hit us,
theory, or like
ma'am.
the blue dot method, my high school had it when I was in school, and maybe it's just a North Kansas City thing. I don't know. But essentially, a teacher would put a blue dot outside of their door, and that essentially is a signal of, like, if you need something, come to me. Like, if you need it, talk, come to me. And I leave almost every one of my training sessions with, if you need me, shoot me a text message, right? And same thing with my online clients. Like, our communication is via text message mostly, and it's weekly check-ins, sometimes daily check-ins, depending on how much accountability that person needs. And we will do at least one, if not two, of these type of Zoom calls or FaceTime calls if they have an iPhone. And if they're local, right? If I have a lady right now who is like very equipped in her knowledge with fitness, but sometimes even the professionals need help, right? I've had a coach before
They
too.
absolutely do. They absolutely do. Yeah. Everybody needs help. Yes. At one point or another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so she's getting the benefit of the conversations that we're having, obviously having something that she doesn't have to think about and follow. But because she's local, sometimes we'll meet up and get coffee face to face. So then there is a little bit of that dynamic where, like, no, we're not just estranged people where we only communicate via, technology. And so I really try my best to create the most opportunities for in-person meetings as much as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then with combat cardio, so I love seeing the posts. I'm an early riser too, right? Like I get out to Beast to fight at 5:00 most mornings.
Shout out
lately
Sid.
With the snow and yeah. Oh my
Such
gosh.
good people.
I love that. Sid's my guy too. Like he's been helping me with my diet stuff. And when I see him, we chat it up, and I just love the community there.
Awesome.
But I love seeing your posts, and I don't know, do you and Mitch share like the duty of social media with combat cardio?
Yep.
Okay. So when it's the picture early in the morning and it's like every day it says it's a great day for combat cardio, right? And so, you're there on site, you're the Mitt Queen. How'd you get that name? And then like, how often are you meeting with people there? So what's your presence like at combat cardio, and what's your role and your influence in the business?
So technically my official title is I'm COO, Chief Operating Officer, right?
There we go.
And so
that's it.
Really what that comes down to is outside of the gym, it's building any type of relationships, networking, because Mitchell has a very loaded plate as well with other things that he does. And so that's what that looks like as COO. Now, presence inside the gym though, Monday through Friday, because we have the hours of 6 a.m. to noon, and then we reopen 3:30 to 8 p.m. Depending on if I have a one-on-one client that wants to meet at combat, I'm always the closer 3:30 to 8 p.m. So I'm there Monday through Friday.
Okay.
I'm the last shift. And then Mitchell is always the opener Monday through Friday as well. But there may be instances where we know we're going to have a busy morning. And so I'm going to show up and we're both there, in the gym together, because it just improves our members' experience, because now they have more dynamic people being able to help them, and they're getting the attention.
Because they can show up anytime, which I thought was also really, really awesome. Like, you don't have this,
rigid schedule.
That's exactly the word I was going to use. And I didn't want to knock anybody who has a rigid schedule.
Not at all.
But people have to have class times, and that's good for certain professionals too, especially people who work weird ass hours. But when I think it was a post I saw, they could show up at any time. It's like, whoo, that's incredible.
Well, and to that too, right? Like, there's so much value in the accountability of, I have this membership where now I get to dictate when I show up. Am I going to show up? Right? Versus.
Yeah, because we're not restricting you.
Exactly. Yes.
You know our hours. Get your ass in here.
No, I mean, yes. But
yeah.
I used to do CrossFit, and based on my schedule, I could only go to the noon class. It was the only one that made sense.
Super hard.
Yes. And so
that's usually how it is. It's 4 a.m.
or nothing.
5 a.m. or noon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I know I'm going to show up. And in the days that I don't, I feel guilty. Or it's just you didn't show up, you didn't do it, you're not doing enough, yada, 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 yada. And so, and then that's a Tiana thing, right? Not everybody who does
that. Sure, absolutely. We've all got that.
Yes, but
most of us have that.
I would like to think, but
some really don't care.
Some no. And know what?
We're trying to get them to care just a little bit, not toxic shame.
Right.
But can you just,
there's a little bit of respect for it, because it's man, you're just so carefree.
I just said a sorry, by the way. I hope you tallied that.
Hey, we're tied up now.
I interrupted you again. Go ahead. What were you saying about the carefree thing?
I mean, there's a little bit of man, you you're just so carefree. I appreciate that. But care a little bit more, please.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my presence in the gym, I'm always there closing throughout the week. Mitchell's always the opener. We in the fitness world, you understand trends, right? You understand the holiday time, the third quarter of the year or the fourth quarter is going to be busy. People are just not as strict. They're not as accountable, all these things. And so, there was a little bit of a slowdown as December hit. And then, of course, as January and February continue, help the snow leaving Kansas City, hopefully sooner rather than later, it'll start to pick back up, and I'll start being there again to help out in the mornings, leave, and then come back to close. Because most of my personal training one-on-one is the first half of the day.
Absolutely. What are some of the breakthroughs that you've seen? And maybe if you feel comfortable talking about it too, some of the challenges with combat cardio and starting it up. I mean, I know that you left your full-time position with S2 and you're in leadership and all this stuff. So you talked about it's been a risk. And so being a brick and mortar business owner, it's a whole other story.
Yes.
I mean, some of us folks like me, with my consulting business, it's I'm a business, and wherever I go, that's where my business is. And, that I conduct my business like this, and I've got calls tomorrow, with clients and stuff. But having a space is a completely different ballgame. And so what are some of the challenges and some of the breakthroughs and the wins, I guess, that you have seen with combat cardio?
Well, I think for personal growth, you asked about the Mitt Queen. I had never.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for bringing that back.
I had never held mitts before. I tell people, I go on TikTok Live or Instagram Live, and I'll do a breakdown of me doing this speed bag, just to let people see kind of what it is.
Love it.
I have been doing the speed bag for 35 days. I have been doing the.
That's right, because you do it every day. You're day 30.
Yep, every day that I'm there, I'm practicing, and the patience to get better at something that you've never done before, and you're going to be sloppy and bad at it in the beginning, is something that that has helped me communicate also to members whenever they're trying out something new, because wearing gloves and punching stuff isn't always natural to everybody. You don't just have gloves hanging around, right? But learning to really overcome the imposter syndrome of somebody who's never held mitts before, and somebody who, doesn't really know combat sports. Mitchell, Michael, Morgan, our brothers, they will go and watch the fights, and they're invested, and they know the latest tea about John Jones and all these guys, and I don't even know if that's his name. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still ignorant.
Yeah, John Jones, Johnny Bones,
there
man.
we go, you know?
Most dangerous man in mixed martial arts. I'll stand by it.
Okay, you know what? I will support it simply for the fact that, like, you sound more confident in it than I did. But
well, he trains with firearms too. So yeah, he's mega dangerous, right? He's uber. That's what I would say, uber dangerous.
I love that word mega so much. Mega dangerous. Yes.
Royalty free, use it.
Mega.
Don't owe me any royalties for that. Go ahead.
You. But yeah, so like overcoming the imposter syndrome, that piece, and you know, this brick and mortar concept, right, that we have. And I mean, it's not a concept, but that we have, right? My experience of shifting now from this intrapreneur. So Andy Frisella, you know, he talks about entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs and how, like, you know, being a business owner of a brick and mortar, you can cultivate an entrepreneur's mindset for your employees if they want to go and expand the same business, right? So for the last 3 years, I had the mindset of I am going to own supplement superstores in Montana, or I'm going to go take a market down to Texas. And so, you know, the store that I'm working in, regardless if I was managing or not, I looked at it as if it was my own. And so whether I'm working from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. or I have a 6 a.m., you know, workout, Josh Baker's invited me to go do jujitsu at 6 a.m. And I'm like, bro, I've never rolled before, but I'm going to do it because people come to me asking about jujitsu. So I have to know and give them my experience. Like, there's a willingness to sacrifice, and there's a willingness to know that, like, no matter what you do as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as an entrepreneur, as a parent, you have to be willing to give 51 and take 49. And that has allowed me and Mitchell, you know, him understanding this side of it too, to really dive into, like, I'm showing up regardless. And what I have going on, my hardships cannot come over and spill into my people's experience, right? Like, I cannot carry that because I'm holding such a higher position and regard for what I'm trying to create that, you know, there's this piece of, like, I used to tell, it's kind of silly. I'm laughing about it because looking back, like, I should have been less strict on myself about it. But I used to tell people, like, hey, Tiana, how you doing? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how I'm doing, man. I got things to do. I got a business to run.
I had that phase too, and everybody would walk away going, what the hell is wrong with Michael?
Side eye, like, what is going on?
I like, damn, okay, bro.
I won't ask you again.
Cool story, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, reminder, just nod next time when I walk by him.
Yeah, fist bump. Keep it.
Yeah. So you would say, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, I would straight up be like, yeah, you know, how I'm doing doesn't matter. Like, I need to not focus on my emotions. I need to focus on helping my staff, helping, you know, getting the store going, getting into the community, et cetera, et cetera. And that was a great learning lesson in that time because, like, I even made the choice before I left S2 to step down from management and go back to an hourly employee position and kind of just, like, navigate these things and, like, understanding that I have a choice. Like, I'm not stuck in this position. I'm able to move. And that's, like, shout out the leadership at S2 for also being so understanding and, like, open to that. Because, like, how many places are you going to get a job at, work your way up, and then step down, and then they still look at you and hold you to the same regard that they did before, judgment free, understanding that you're a person navigating being a person, right? And
absolutely,
it was like, that was the risk. The risk was, I'm leaving such amazing people. I'm leaving a community of like-minded individuals who are working towards a greater goal of just making our Kansas City community and eventually, you know, the world better. But there is also this piece of, like, I can't repeat this mindset of putting everything over me, and not in a selfish way, but in a being able to show up the best Tiana way. This is not in alignment with that. And they knew that. And it was a great conversation.
Yeah. So just two things quick. I do have to note, you're the second person I've had on this show that has worked for S2.
Oh, dope.
And, you know, obviously I'm well familiar with them. I've contacted them about different supplements as I've started, you know, finding my stuff. And now Beastified has been stocking a lot of the things I use, like the protein and the myovite and things like that. But my experience with their store has been everybody that answers the phone, it's like, oh my gosh, I wish everybody that worked for a place would answer the phone like this and be this helpful.
Right.
So, I had Chase Forsyth, who now runs hardware
Yeah.
clothing. And he shared a pivotal moment from his time working at S2, and it was at a team meeting. And so they are absolutely producing, like, so my background is in lean process improvement. And I remember Toyota saying, they don't build cars, they build people. That is the sense that I get with S2.
Absolutely.
They are building people.
Yes.
And we are so blessed to have them in our region. Like, I don't know that people outside of, the fitness community. No, I do. I know people have seen them, the city officials, for everywhere that they are. I noticed their new location where the old Pegas used to be off of Shawnee Mission and 35. I saw that the other day. I was like, oh, snap. Okay. So that's the new store they've been talking about. So just a commentary on them, and all the work they're doing is amazing.
So good.
And then I want to go back to this 51 give 51 and take 49. What's the significance in that 1%? Can you define that? Because I think I'm inferring what I think that means, but like, what does that mean for our listeners, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, and this isn't just a business thing either. This is a life thing. And this is a lesson that I got from, Freddie Ford. He's the guy who was our DM at S2, who was like just a standout human. And he would always tell us, you got to be willing to give 51 and take 49. And what that means is it's showing up, it's showing up, and you may not have your cup filled by other people and leave knowing that cup is still filled because you did it the way that like it's supposed to be executed, whatever that it is. Running a store, running a business, running a gym, showing up for your family, building relationships. And so that 1% difference is really the separation of emotion and execution, tying that back in. It is truly knowing that like what you're doing, the way I see it, what you're doing is out of, the purpose in which we serve God's light and his mission for us. And, he's not going to do something and expect something in return. That expectation is really the determining factor of that 1%. You're expecting something from another human. Well, you may be setting yourself up for failure. But if you are going into it expecting to deliver what you can deliver, well, what you're going to receive is out of your hands. And I guarantee you it's going to be something bigger than what you could have done.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. Hey, thanks for defining that too. And I can see that too. And I can see that as like one of the coolest one-ups that you can do when you're serving others too. Say, hey, here's a little bit more, right? I'm gonna pour a little bit more out of my glass because quote, my cup's overflowing kind of thing. Right.
Exactly.
I need somewhere to put this 1% anyway. So here you go, leaving people with that good impression. And again, too, kind of leaving them with the blue dot for the future. Right. Say, hey, look, always remember, look. And that's the thing too, I imagine you do with your clients, is that every conversation where they tell you something that they think is going to make you judge them or panic, and you don't, you establish that trust with them. And then again, it's like you both walk out of that talk with, they know that blue dot, they saw the blue dot and they're like, I'm so glad that I just actually, and I imagine that at the school too, the teacher with the blue dot, there's probably kids that really needed to go talk, but then thought, nah, she's not, teacher isn't going to appreciate this or whatever. For whatever reason, they didn't take the teacher up on that. Anyway, all that to say, I wanted to talk about a little bit about your hobbies too, about how you recharge, right? Because you show up to this interview with like so much presence and so much strength, and I'm imagining your interactions but I know like you're not a nuclear reactor, right? Like you have to recharge, right? You have your moments, and so you recently like you decided to do this, okay? You joined KC Patriots Rugby Club.
Yes. Heck yeah. Shout out my dogs.
6 months ago.
Literally.
And if anybody's watched rugby or like women's rugby, like this is not something that people just sign up for. Like it's not going to be posted on the local, city rec center schedule. Like come show up and beat the piss out of each other.
Literally.
With a football, the the
Rugby
ball,
ball.
but you signed up for this. So like, does this recharge you,
Oh
Tiana?
my gosh. Yes, it does so much.
Tell us about that.
Yes. So, okay. We've talked about this, this whole conversation. The youngest of 5 kids, 4 brothers,
Yeah.
youngest of 6 kids, 4 brothers. And it's one of these things where I kind of joke where I always be like, yeah, well, my sister, like growing up, we didn't really get along. So sometimes it felt like I had 5 brothers. But like in that, there's this like there's a big conversation of masculine and feminine energy, right? And in today's world, being a confident woman and not like competing with men, right? Like I can do things that men can do. Like that's not the conversation I'm having, but like the competition and like the actual drive there, right? And so there's this energy in this space that I've always had and I've always felt, this very dominant, aggressive, masculine energy being around my brothers all the time, talking like my brothers, communicating like my brothers. And it's like the older I got, I'm like, I am a grown woman. I should not be like talking like my brother, there's layers to it. And so that energy that I'm able to like compartmentalize and ball up and then like leave on the field is so like relieving for my own psyche and like my own space, because now I don't feel weird pouring into my femininity. I don't feel weird, being there's like an imposter syndrome that I used to have of like being a girly girl. Like, this is not me, but like, it really is me at the core. Like I am a girl's girl and like, I like pink, I like flowers, and I like to paint, like I don't want to rough my nails up and get dirt underneath them. Like that's not fun for me. But the rugby piece is like, I'm not only doing something where I can now deliver that masculine energy and feel really freaking good doing it, similar to like when I'm boxing, but I'm also around amazing women. Like my teammates were majority first responders, military veterans, PD, they're savages. Like they are just badasses. And then on top of that, like the purpose behind this team is amazing. Like Elena, she created this team to give first responders and veterans a space where they have the same type of release and outlet, because there's so much trauma that comes with that field of work. Like I could only imagine. And now,
is that why it's called Patriots?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's like the main driver of it.
That's what I'm deducing.
Yeah, because she's
okay.
a savage. Elena, she was a Marine and like special forces, like just a straight G. And to also now create a space where women of all walks of life can come together and do something together, just empowering in general. Like you can't beat it. And the rugby community is awesome. Like I still am learning things. Like there are weird names in the game that like, I'm like, what is a flanker? But like, what are these words? The first
sounds very European.
Super. But like I grew up watching football. I was a football manager. I was always around it, but my coach wasn't going to have me play. He was like, nah, you're not going to play football, which is fine. It's probably better, looking back. My mom didn't want me playing. My parents didn't want me wrestling boys, because at the time when I was in high school, we didn't have girls wrestling. So, there was just, all these spaces in which I wish I would have been able to give that energy I'm talking about. But now, like, I think it was, in hindsight, really good for me to develop and work through it. So then now in my, young adulthood, I'm able to understand that energy and how to kind of like put it in where it makes sense, where I feel recharged.
Absolutely. Gosh, I love that. That is so cool. Where can I guess we could maybe link them, but how can we learn more about KC Patriots Rugby?
Yeah. Their Instagram is Patriots Rugby. We're actually going to have our first, when is this going to air? Do you know?
It'll go live in a couple of Tuesdays.
Oh, okay.
So before February for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a team meeting that's going to be open to anybody that's interested. That's January 26th. And all this information will be posted on our Instagram, and already is. But it's Patriots Rugby is the Instagram.
I just started following.
So, heck yeah. That's awesome. You have to come out to a game. Like, it is so fun.
I would love to show my daughter. Yes. So just a little side note too, because we're gonna get back to your hobbies and how you recharge. Yeah. But my girls, like, I was talking to Gabriel about this. Like my girls, my philosophy as a dad is because they got me as their dad, and my wife also is just so supportive of me. You know, we talked to you about how my wife and we both take, you know, personal protection, self-defense, things like that seriously. My girls, like, you know, the Mike Tyson and Jake Paul fight, they watched Amanda Serrano and Katie, whatever her name was. I sat there with my 7-year-old and at the time my 4-year-old, and we watched it. And we watched Amanda Serrano's eye open up and start flapping with like the wind.
Yes.
And my daughter, my 7-year-old, because she's very physical like me as well. She tells me the next day she was thinking about it. I mean, and Amanda Serrano, mad shouts to her for just being a complete badass and conducting herself like an absolute professional in that post-fight interview. But my daughter came up and, you know, because she watched Mike Tyson and Jake Paul as well. And she said, you know what, Daddy, girls are tougher than men, because the way that Mrs. Serrano fought was so much more, you know, and she's telling me in her own way, her own 7-year-old way. And so all that to say, like, I would love to take my daughters to a rugby game and see that. And that's something too, like we've definitely been mindful about, you know, it's funny, like we watch the football games and some of the commercials. I'm like, man, can y'all just tone it down with the CSI murder scene stuff? Like, I don't want my kids seeing this crap.
Right.
You know, it's the middle of the day Chiefs game. But at the same time, I've had them watch, you know, Theon Davies jiu-jitsu matches and, you know, the Amanda Serrano fight. And they know that. And all that to say, my God.
No, you're good. I love it.
Just trying to get to the point here. Good. It's like my daughters will know how to dance and they will also know how to swing a sword. And because I'll be damned if I let them grow up and go into this world without the means to actually utilize violence.
Absolutely.
And I've been saying it more and more on this show, but like there is nothing virtuous about nonviolence unless you are actually capable of violence. There has to be an acknowledgement that life is not always going to be easy peasy.
Absolutely.
And you talked about identifying the difference between good and evil and all that. And, you know, my daughters, they're not being raised the way I was. Like the environment I came from, I got my street smarts at a very young age because of the environment that I was raised in. And so my head is always on a swivel. I talked to Gabriel about this in the last episode. I said, you know, it sounds like paranoia to people on the outside when, you know, you're training and you're doing boxing and it, you know, you're keeping in shape for the conflict that you really, there's like a 0.5% chance or a 1% chance you might come into contact with that one day. But if you do, 100% of your survival is going to depend on how you are. And you're not going to rise to the occasion. You are going to fall to the level of your training too, right?
100%.
So, boil it back. I'm going to reel that fish back in. I would love to take the family to go see one of the rugby games.
Huge.
I love how rugby is that release for you. You mentioned you paint too. So what's up with the painting? What type of painting do you do? Is this something that you've always done? Like, where do you, how do you get artistic with it?
You know, I mean, like I feel like I've always been a creative. I like music a lot, you know, as I'm wearing a producer's hoodie right now. Like I love music, you know, and you know, if I'm chilling and I am in this space of like, I've always had music playing at my house, whether it's like lo-fi beats or it's like actual songs. Like I just, maybe it's got, I don't mind silence, but I think it settles my cats down when they get to listen to the lo-fi. But like, I never have like an intention of I'm going to paint this. Like I'm just going based off like the vibes and how I'm feeling. Like that KCBC TV that you have in the background, like the color schemes and like the way things are blended. Like I like that. And so I like to
appreciate that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And it reminds me of a Dom Kennedy album cover from the West Side with Love. And I have my own spin of that album and my own painting. And it's things that hit home to me that I like to kind of like manifest into a way that's also like that original piece, but like Tiana's twist. And that's like really usually my motivation anytime I'm like painting or I'm drawing. And it's just peaceful.
That is so cool. I noticed too, I think you posted this yesterday, but you said every time I'm working out and I'm listening to music, I pretend that I'm in a movie.
Yes. Music video. Heck yeah.
A music video. That's right. No. Sorry. I'm blending a little bit of like what I do is I have to have a soundtrack going for my whole day. And I get crazy with like what I post online too. Like, one day I'm in the gym and it's Wu-Tang 36
Heck yeah.
Chambers. The next day it's the Highwaymen, Johnny Cash and
Literally.
Willie Nelson, and I'm like, forget bipolar, tripolar. I'm like multiverse when it comes to music.
Absolutely.
And I listen to all kinds of wild stuff. So yeah, who are some of your favorite artists? Like you said, you always got to be listening to music. So what are your favorite genres? Who are your favorite artists? Let's just start dropping names here.
Absolutely. I am a hip hop and R&B person all the way, and and favorite artist has to be Larry June. Larry June, he's West Coast. I am very fond, which is very interesting actually. A lot of Kansas City folks are fond of West Coast culture and West Coast music, but Larry June for sure. Dom Kennedy is up there as well. I'm a big fan of Drake. It's kind of contradicting because like one of my top songs this year has been Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us, but it's a banger and I love DJ Mustard. I've always been a fan of him as a producer, but yeah, so Larry June is definitely up there. Dom Kennedy is up there. If we're talking non-traditional R&B music, I'm a big fan of, we grew up listening to him. I love Seal's music. He's very like, just good for the soul. Like, it just makes me feel good,
Absolutely.
But, I would definitely say those are some of my top 3 for sure. Top 4.
I love it. That's so cool. Yeah, I think there's something about music helping us get out of ruts as well. And that's the thing that I know, it's been there for me. And then, being a musician and, my wife too. That's what attracted me to my wife. She was singing and playing at youth group back in high school, and I was just like, who is this beautiful girl who is playing these worship songs? And so we have a lot of fond memories of going to concerts, seeing local music, live music. But for whatever reason, like I've always had to have music or make my own playlists or whatever. I actually wrote down Larry June, Dom. It's Dom, D-O-M, as in Michael Kennedy.
Yep, Dom Kennedy.
Okay.
And
yeah, and
well, I was just gonna say, like, I like them a lot because they're just like, it's not non-violence and like aggressive towards women type of music. Like, it's like, we're vibing. It's kind of silly. There's no like depth, like real like rawness to the lyrics, and I like that because I'm so serious in other areas of my life. Like, I want this to be a very like non-serious type of experience. Like, just feel good, talk about like, being a better person, being your healthier self, building something, building a business, making money, like so many layers that are beyond like, the same FBGM, like that's what a lot of raw rap is about. And I'm like, well,
what's FBGM?
Bitches get money. Like, yeah, I mean, sure, but like,
how did I not know that?
Doing... That's okay. But yeah. Right. So,
well, that's a tale as old as time too. That sort of message and that line of messaging. Yeah.
And actually, like going back to that masculine feminine piece, like, we're talking music as healing. I recently have actually put forth more of an effort to listen to like more female artists and like listening to more women in the industry that aren't talking like anti-men talk. Because that's another thing too. Like, I don't want to listen to music that's like, I don't need no man, F these dudes. Like, no, that's because that's not my dialogue either. But if we're talking about like, we're talking about the healing piece and more serious conversation, well then, yeah, we'll get into, other female artists that are talking about like their feelings. And that's where I will then, use that as a healing piece instead of like, I'm just chilling, vibing out.
That is so powerful too, because it's literally like John Acuff wrote that book, Soundtracks. He talks about the things that we have, running in our minds. And we've talked about that vicious cycle of, I talked about the cycle of sorry, and you talked about it was another cycle of something about like, oh, I messed up, and, being consumed with that. But the soundtracks that we have, I mean, what we listen to as well, like that can absolutely have an influence. And, it is tough. It is tough to find some positivity in music. That also for me, what I struggle with is like some stuff just sounds corny to me.
Absolutely.
Too, And I went through that for the longest time. Like I got so many friends who, you know, they just listen to a lot of praise and worship music. And for me, being a metalhead and a punk rocker and getting into rap and hip hop later in my early days, you know, it's one of those things like that. If you find an artist that really has a message that's really resonating with you, you may choose to listen to that person for a season. Like I can go back to artists during very traumatic times in my life and also very awesome times in my life as well. I know you probably know this too, but when you hear a song, you picture where you were when you first heard it or what you were going through. And, you know, it's a big deal.
Absolutely.
It's a big deal. So, you know, just to kind of, you know, we're getting towards the end here, and I just want to make sure that we talk about this too, along with anything else that we've missed. But what's next for you coming up in 2025? Like, have you, you know, I know you actually took a little sabbatical from social media. You took a break from social media at the end of the year. You've had some time to reflect. What's going to be big for you in 2025? What's coming up next, or what you're excited about particularly?
You know, my biggest project or thing that I'm working towards is launching my Fit Under 30 program. And what this is going to be, it's the new version of a Beachbody, right? And essentially my target is your health is not out of reach. And whether it is you have 30 minutes in the morning or 30 minutes at night, warm up included, this is going to be an 8-week program that there's 4 quarters of it. So the workouts are going to change quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4. And it is 4 workouts a week where you are just executing these workouts, dumbbell friendly or body weight friendly if you don't have the resources, because again, your fitness should not be out of reach. And that's going to be something that I launch next Monday. Well, I launch it. What's the date?
Today is the
11th.
Saturday the 11th.
See, my days blur together. I have to take it one day at a time.
I'm the same way. Exact same way.
But Monday the 20th is when this is technically going to launch. But what that is, it's another online program where I will be putting out videos where you can follow the workouts. It'll be via the Instagram subscription where you're able to just hop on and see the workout of the day and you get to execute it. And then based on best transformations.
Through Instagram.
Yeah. It'll be through kind of like how there's like Facebook groups and stuff. You know, you can build your own Instagram community. And, you know, I'm a person that's like, I don't want to add stuff to my phone. I don't want to download another app. I don't want to have to go another, stop. And so I'm like, if I'm in my clientele's shoes, or if I'm in the demographic or target in which I'm trying to focus similar like-minded people, well, these are probably people who don't want to add stuff to their phone. Well, you already use Instagram. You're already on it. All you got to do is tap that little circle and you get to see what the workout is of the day, and then engage and get other exclusive content that focus on this same type of stuff that we're talking about in a deeper scale. So that'll be launching towards the end of January.
That's genius. What else is coming up in 2025?
You know, that's really my main, if we're talking business, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
It's getting that going. It is building combat cardio. We're looking to do more community focused things. We want to do a couple of events this year. We're actually a sponsor of our rugby team, so we're going to do some type of fundraiser as well and really highlight that, because I know we are going to be doing some traveling this year for rugby. And really that's it. You know, I'm focused. I was going to do a bodybuilding show, but you know, the stage will always be there. However, rugby will not.
That's right.
And so I'm really diving into my athletic performance style of training for rugby all of 25.
That is so cool. I love how you are just so focused going into 2025. You know, it sounds like you did a lot of deep work in 2024, which has really positioned you well for what's coming up next. And you know, I ask a lot of people this question. I talk to business owners all the time, and I just so appreciate just the clarity that you've talked about, like your experience and then what's coming next. It's incredible. Final silly sorry count I just have 2. Well done. I think that's great. How many do you have on me?
Well, we missed 2. You double sorry'd earlier. It's technically 4-2. You hit me with a double. I gave you a peace sign of like, woo. It's okay.
Man, oh
It's all
man.
right. Hey, you
So,
didn't break
yeah,
5 though, so that's a win.
yeah, we didn't break 5. We don't have 5 here. Tiana, it has been such an honor having you on the show.
Likewise, Michael.
I would love to have you back on in the future.
Absolutely.
I anticipate just so much more growth with combat cardio and then your own training with T. Thank you so much. Do you want to just kind of tell people the best ways to follow and engage with you, and then we'll go ahead and sign
Yeah,
off.
absolutely. Best ways that you can find me are going to be on Instagram. It is at TBallT. I'll spell it out. TEEBALLT .. And that's really where I'm mostly active, especially because TikTok's getting banned in like a couple of days. So that's not even going to be a source that we have. I don't know what the rabbit hole of it is. All I know is that Instagram is where I'm mostly active. And then I do have a website, and it is trainwithtllc.com/ I think train with T. Wix is weird.
Absolutely. And we will have those links in the notes. So listeners, if you want to go over there right now, please do. You heard it all from Tiana herself. Again, so honored to have her on the show. Thank you, Tiana. Really appreciate you. All right, everybody. So you know what to do. We do this to spread awareness, and we hope that after hearing the stories of our guests, that you will go follow them, go engage. Their message resonates with you, that you'd link up with them, contact them. If it resonates in a relationship that you have with someone else right now, that you would refer. We are trying to be a lot more vocal now about all of our local businesses here in this Kansas City region. And if you're listening outside of Kansas City, which I know there's quite a few of you who do, ask yourself, does this exist in your city? Is there an opportunity to bring some of what Tiana has spoken about and some of what we're doing here at KCBC to your own neighborhood or city or wherever? That's the call to action that we ask of you. So again, thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you. We'll see you at the next episode.